All right. Cheers, Ryan.
Cheers.
This feels good. Let's count the number of things that are better than last time. Keeps getting better. One, I got my Sony A7S III hooked up for the video. We'll figure out the settings to make it look nice, but it is completely part of our operation now.
Glad that's integrated.
The podcast mic working too. We have the whole remote visual thing working with you all the way in Minnesota, no problems. I think that's worth having to celebrate, so I'm going to start drinking on these episodes now.
I was waiting for you to say, and you can join me for a drink again.
Mm-hmm.
Very happy that that's back.
I finally deserve it, Ryan. I fucking deserve it.
Yes, you do, my friend.
Okay. I want to start off real quick. I want to tell you what happened last night. So, I'm really excited about my camera. I love it, but that was primarily not according to like the plan of the schedule. It was mostly I wanted to get that just off my mind, so I wasn't wasting time thinking about it. I wasn't taking, and wasn't distracted thinking about it. So I'm only spending a little bit shreds of time learning it, all the settings and stuff. But I went out twice this week to try it out in the dark light, which is what I really wanted to do this for. I went to Bicentennial Park on Monday and took some photos and some videos. And when I got back and I'm looking at it, and like I still barely know what I'm doing, but it's just, wow, this feels so nice. I just love it. All of this stuff, you really have to, if you take it home, you have to unload it by SD card. So I can't just send it from my phone as soon as I take it. And the big perk of it is you can get the raw files, which don't look that fancy, but they have a lot of control to it, more than a normal photo or a normal movie. So you can take those and bring out the lights and the dark and the colors very, very well. But that, again, requires another step. I got to put it into the editor and do all that stuff first. So there's a lot of things I've done that I don't think I've shown you yet, but I'm going to figure out how to start adding that to this podcast too, where we can have that on the screen. Maybe we can go over a couple things, live as we're doing it.
Absolutely. I know you sent me a video. I assume it's of the night camera in action. But I will say, because you texted it to me, I'm pretty sure I can count the pixels in the video. It compressed it so much that it does your camera no favors.
Yeah, it's brutal. If you go like a normal thing on a normal system, it comes out okay. But these are, like 100 megabits per second. So they're massive files. And it goes, no, this is just going to destroy us. And it turns it down to a potato. But I want to tell you about last night.
I think you need to upload it to some platform as a post, so that way people can actually see and appreciate it too. And then just send me the link to that so I can be part of your audience.
That's a great idea. If we had a repository, because I already have 2 channels on YouTube for different functions. If we had one specifically for the podcast, then you can see it, but also like anyone who's interested in what we were talking about can look at it too.
Plus, then I can send you little things if I want to talk about something and have you get it queued up there as well.
Let me write that down really quick. Yeah, we'll think about what would that have to be shared, but we can figure this out. And
we'll get something figured out for it.
It's kind of interesting. There's all these things we're super excited about, the storytelling skills, the photography, the audio, and all this stuff. But so much, it seems like these tiny things, like figuring out a shared repository for media, it sounds like just bureaucratic stuff, but ends up really adding a whole lot of energy and joy to the whole process.
Well, I mean, before people became influencers and social media took off and becoming a YouTuber was a profession, YouTube and platforms like that were made for sharing videos. I feel like we're going back to their roots a little bit. Share the video without it being as compressed and as crunchy as through a text message.
Yeah, we'll figure this all out. This is slowly starting to change from being a struggle and being a student to being something that feels natural and just enjoying the art of it. So I wanted to tell you about last night.
Yes.
So one of the primary reasons why I wanted to get this camera was that project I wanted to work on was going around and filming the hotel bars of Nashville. I travel a whole lot around the world, and that's something that's always I fall in love with, and in a lot of ways feels more at home than a lot of places that, I had an apartment at. And when I came out, found some great ones, made this huge compendium, and went out a few times to go explore. And I realized immediately, like, these are too dark. An iPhone can't record it. And there's a lot of things that a more expensive camera is better at. But the number one thing, and really the only thing you would need to upgrade for, is just dynamic range, which means the ability to handle very dim environments. So I've just been chomping the bit. I got this. This is what I want to use it for. Now's not the right time because we're focused on the Irish whiskey tasting thing. But I had to go. There's one hotel I've gone 2 or 3 times, and I just love the environment. I love the bar. It's like, I got to take it out. So I wanted to go early in the week when there's not a lot of people, so I could just look at it, practice, not be distracted by talking or people wondering, hey, why are you taking my picture and all this stuff. So anyway, I go there, and immediately it's starting to feel really good. Before I even get in there, this one is called the Bridge Bar. There's a couple beautiful bars inside this hotel, but on the 3rd floor, there's one that goes across from the hotel to the Nashville Public Library. So when I'm walking to it, the bridge is sticking out over the road, and I can see through the windows into it, and I can see the television screens and the bartender and everything hanging out. It's kind of like Christmas Eve. I'm already getting really excited about this. And I pull out my camera, and I snap a photo, and this is the freaking thing. It's better than your human eye. So I'm like, wow, you can see so much from here. And I get the camera to you. I'm like, oh my God, you can see even more. This is so great. So I get in there, and immediately just so much stuff. I love this. Any fraction I'm able to share with other people and other people enjoy too or appreciate, or I can turn this into any kind of a career, that's great. But man, I just love doing this so much. The mood, the decoration, the ambiance is just completely my style. I love it. So having a good time already. Go up into the Bridge Bar, take some photos. I'm learning a little bit. And I'll have more time to talk about the skills we're developing later on over time. But after my first drink, I go down to the 1st floor bar and check it out. And I'm going to have one more drink, try this place out, then head on home, wake up early at sunrise, and keep working on my stuff, Sit down. I'm leaning back, and I love the whole bokeh thing. And I starting to get the hang of it. I have this photo of my old-fashioned, and it's completely clear, and the rest of the world just completely blurred. But from the other photos you've seen it, you know what that is. So it kind of has the energy of this really beautiful bar with this cool bartender and all these things, but it's kind of just turned into an emotion instead of, physical thing with the blurring. And I'm just looking at it wow. I took this photo, but I'm still shocked at how much reaction and feeling I have about it. I love this. About that time, this guy at the corner bar says, what kind of idiot just brings a camera into a bar to take photos of his drinks, well, that's actually the only way I'm here today. I'm not here to drink. I'm here for the photography. I get halfway through my drink. I'm feeling good. I'm liking this. I'm learning little bits. There's some photos I want to show you later. There was some really cool shots of that bar that it's a beautiful spot. I'd love to show you someday. And you should show me some cool places in Minnesota, so when I visit, I can go film those. But I'm halfway, I'm getting ready to wind up. This is nice, chill dude. Chill rhythm. I get in learning, but I'm not burning out. And then I turn to my right. This guy walks in hey, what can I get at this bar? Sits down. The guy behind him is carrying a full-on cinema camera. The whole works and everything. His other guy walks in and they sit down oh, hey, nice camera. I'm oh my gosh, what the crap is going on? And I remembered when I first walked into the bar, the bartender mumbled something like, "Oh, are you with like, S&A Media?" I was like, "No, I just got this thing. I'm trying to figure it out." There's a full-on like documentary shoot going on in the building, and the creators came over to have a seat. And this is when the night immediately goes off the rails. And
As
all
it
of us
should.
would be surprised if this was at Nashville. Like, every time you step out of your house and you're excited about something, it gravitates you to, like, I don't have a metaphor, but it just comes and gets you.
It's an amazing feature of the city. I can't explain it either, but people there are so passionate and they always find each other.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there, we're talking to the guy, and he's buying me a drink. He's like, "Yeah, I actually teach like photography for a living. Here's our cinematographer. He's been doing this for 30 years. We just did this." And he's like, "You know what makes this as an art?" And he starts getting into it, and I'm all fired up about the stuff he's talking about too, because they're really great ideas. He's like, "Oh, you freaking got this. We got to talk. Come over here." And he pulls out his camera. He's like, "Okay, so look at the bar. You picked this place because you like this. Tell me, what's the difference between the architecture of the place and the feel of the place?" And he pulls me back. And he says, "From here, you can see everything. You can see how all the lines connect. You can see all the parts that went into designing it, to building it, how it was made, all the thought that the architect had made to do. But you look at that corner, those three people right there. That's the feel. If you couldn't see anything else about this bar existed to make those people have an emotional impact. But that emotion is the feel that this was made for. And if you get up close and you just watch those people, that will show you the feel of this place, kind of the emotional mirror of what they created."
Interesting.
And that added another just topic for me to dive into and focus on. And he asked me, like, "So which one are you interested in?" I said, like, "Neither. I'm interested in the feel, but not from the people, but from the objects." And I show him a couple of the photos on my camera, and there's these up-close shots of the liquor cabinets are this kind of loop that goes around above you, and it's colored glass with lit, and you can look up and look at it. Long story short, it's really beautiful, but looking at it, it feels like it tells a story. Like, there's so many things that's happened here. The love that went into making this place. All the great times people had here. And you're not seeing like a couple kissing or people talking, but these bottles with the kind of distant background of the caged up high-end liquors, and you have this feel, at least I have this feel that I get really excited about. And that's what I'm excited about. And I was talking about that, and he was like, "Yeah, like, you have got an idea. This is freaking great." He's getting more excited. So 3 drinks later, I finally got home.
I hope you grabbed his card, contact info, something, because that sounds like a great contact and fun person to drink with again.
Yeah, I got their info. Hopefully I typed it in right, but we'll sort it out later.
I'm glad to hear it. That is a great experience, especially for your first time out using the camera.
It's so enjoyable. I didn't realize how much joy this would be. And even if you said just 100% do this as a hobby, enjoying the company of people like that, I think this will be a great addition to my life. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of discussion that's good to get into about hobby versus career. But I think doing it with the intent of trying to create something that you could make money off of, done right, actually makes things better. Because you're putting more effort into it. You have complete goals instead of, I'm just going to go here, and I never connected completing anything, but it doesn't matter. I had a good day. Like, no, I want it to be
hold you a
done.
little more accountable.
It forces me to go into more of the dark woods and get the last piece if it wasn't easier or fun. One phrase I got from my course that I liked, and he's explaining, why would you pay for this course instead of just learning everything off of YouTube? And he indirectly explained it. But the thing is, there's critically important things you need to know, and to do that aren't entertaining. They're not fun. If you're just sitting around on YouTube, you would skip to the next one. It's not going to get a lot of, traction, so it's not going to be recommended to you. And in a course, we're going to teach you everything, both the fun things to learn and the difficult but super powerful things. And that's kind of what trying to do this for a career is getting me to learn those things too. We're like, oh, I wouldn't have chosen to do that, but man, I'm so glad I did learn it.
That is a great way of looking at it. I like that.
This is good. Okay, so getting rolling.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about the business stuff first.
Please.
One really interesting realization I had, I want to get your perspective on. It's about the whole, 80-20 thing and our careers and kind of the weird, the scariness and terror that people talk about entrepreneurship, where you don't have a clear path of what needs to be done. So there's this constant dread of, I'm working really hard on this, but is this the wrong thing? Am I not even going the right direction? And when you go to bed at night, the anxiety of, like, did I do enough? Is it okay for me to relax and have a drink with my friend? That kind of thing. And you contrast it, other jobs, it's nice, guaranteed income. You show up and you know if you do this task, you'll be paid and everything's okay. You have a lot of certainty. And you can go home at night like, I did my job. I did it well. I'm good. Rest. And it hit me why this might connect together. I believe that we have two types of jobs. I believe there are jobs that they take care of like the bottlenecks, where if we don't have this completely done, nothing else works. We have to have all four wheels on the car. You put all four wheels on. And then there's other jobs, which I think your entire job is just being in charge of the 80-20. The person who sits down, investigates, and then decides, this is the thing that we need to do that's worth 5 times as much as for everything else. And in a more clear way to understand how difficult this is, by doing that decides, here's the 4 things which are really important, really powerful, that I'm going to say we are not going to do to make room for the thing that is really important.
I can see that, and having to make those judgment calls and figure out what's the best time use for the company is never an easy task to do, especially when it's your own baby of a company as an entrepreneur. Trying to limit how much you do and what takes priority. It's your baby. You want to do everything. You want to take care of everything. Being able to let go and prioritize, no, this is what needs to happen. That's got to be very difficult.
Yeah, there's a lot more anxiety in that. They're harder decisions. It's more gray area, which I think would demand a higher level of skill at it. Because if I hire someone to put tires in my car, it's really easy to tell if they're doing a bad job. We'll train them or replace them. But if we hire like a manager or a CEO and they don't know what they're doing and they're just making bad decisions on 80-20, it's really hard to tell until everything's just burning and you don't know why.
Yeah, I could see that. There's certain metrics you can look at, but they're all impacted by other things as well. What does the market look like? What does supply chain issues look like? There's so much that goes into those metrics, it's hard to find an accurate measure of how good of a job someone's doing in that sort of position.
So when I think about this more, if you think of any, come back next week and let me know if you can think of any other jobs that are more 80-20 focused like that. And we can see how well this theory proves out.
Absolutely. I will put more thought into that. That is a fun theory.
So that led me into another thought related to that. When you're picking the kind of work you should do for yourself or for your career, it feels like there's a big decision between how how hard you work versus how high the ceiling is for that work. For pretty much every kind of job, you can work super hard at it. But not every job actually has a really big reward or change on it. If you're the best, checkout counter at Publix in the world, you're not going to make much of a difference. You're not going to get paid anymore. But you could definitely work 5 times as hard as you did. For other careers, if you put in 5 times as much work, the ceiling is massive and you get a huge reward. So it seems like that's more of a critical decision. If you just are interested in relaxing or want to just kind of slack off, we need people like that too. But if you're someone who's actually cares about working really, really hard, the job you choose is really more important. It's going to make a bigger difference than for other people.
Absolutely. And I mean, the whole customer service industry absolutely thrives on that sort of work ethic of I'm going to work hard because I know if I work hard, people are going to recognize that and I will make more money. I don't have a salary. It's directly tied to how hard I work. I will probably get paid more.
I could see that in my experience, I didn't see that at all in customer service. I saw that a lot in sales.
Sales, absolutely. I mean, bartending, it's just sales plus customer service.
Yeah.
And you get a lot more of a direct, linear response to how well you do at both of those.
And that, it feels really meaningful. My day job, it's pretty good in a lot of ways. But working extra hard barely moves the needle on any sort of outcome.
Which at times it's nice to have that security and knowing, hey, if I have an off day, I'm going to make just as much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. The bigger question... Give and
takes to everything.
Right, and the right fit for you at the right time. This kind of, you're bringing to the bigger question. I've been thinking a whole lot of trying to find the answer to how do you balance the hard work versus wanting to still enjoy what you're doing and also living a life? Because everybody says I should be working harder. My collaborators, they're like, oh, well, I have a full-time job. Also, I have 3 kids. I just don't sleep in order to get time in. And I'm thinking, oh, well, I kind of regret that I'm not enjoying this as much. So I want to take 3 days this week to just drink whiskey with Ryan, go out to a couple places I want to photograph with no purpose.
What's the point of doing anything if you're not going to enjoy it somewhat? I'm sorry, I'm not a nihilist, and your life sounds awful if you're working a full-time job, full-time content creator, and have 3 kids at home. Chances are your wife hates you. That sounds absolutely miserable. I do not want that.
The argument for that is that it's a temporary thing where you have, escape velocity. To get to the moon, you just have to have enough speed at one time, which is going to be more than normal and a little painful, but you'll break away. And then from then on, everything will be better, and the total amount of effort you need to do over the next 5 years is much less.
That's a great theory, but I personally don't really want to see what has the breaking point first, me becoming that popular or my fiance leaving me.
That's a very good point when you have,
It's a risky one,
family.
And honestly, there's a chance that you'll break down too because you can't run with no sleep for however long. Sure, it might work for some people, but to me, that's just a marathon, not a sprint, and you're trying to sprint the whole thing. 1 or 2 people, if you're Usain Bolt, maybe you can do that, but a lot of people are going to burn themselves out and not go anywhere.
The sprint versus marathon, I feel it's almost like a fundamental human question, almost as fundamental as good versus evil. And
the way I look at it, we only have one life. I don't want to sprint through it. I want to enjoy it and take time.
If you could promise me that if I worked really, really hard to the point where all of it was unpleasant, for the next 6 months, and then that would guarantee that I would be able to make enough money at this career, quit my day job, have like a reliable income, but doing it what I want, and then have all this free time to enjoy myself. That would be a tempting trade to
Oh,
make.
absolutely. I'd take that any day. But there is no guarantee. You could just be working yourself to death, burning yourself out on your topic, your passion, to where you don't even want to do it anymore. And the people around you, you might have sabotaged those relationships. That is so much risk. I personally don't see it being worth it.
This is really good. There's more I want to cover on this, because for the relationship thing, you're in a spot where you're engaged. There's commitments, and that's a whole different animal.
Even putting aside that part of things, your friends, if you're just nonstop grinding away and you don't see them ever, you're going to grow apart. You need to invest some time into that relationship too. Otherwise, it won't just be stagnant and you can come back to it in 3 years. You need to keep working on it, keep showing interest.
Well, the flip side of that too, and we need to balance both of these out, is my experience. It was a really positive thing. It was a good filter. When I started focusing hard on this, I had my friends like, hey, what's going on? Where are we going out? Let's go. And then they would invite me more, and there was kind of this anger that started building. It's like, what the heck? Why aren't you coming at all? We've invited you out 4 times and you didn't come. And it was a great filter to see how the different friends handled it after they realized how important this was to me and that this wasn't going to change. One friend got just more and more pushy, where it was like, wow, this guy is getting like more like creepy needy than any girl I'm dating, and he's a dude. There was one time he just texted me like, you have to call me right now. I'm like, oh crap, is he in trouble? Like, does he need some like me to pick him up from the side of the road? He's like, I got tickets for baseball. It's in 20 minutes. I'm like, dude, I'm in the middle of my project. I don't have time for this. I don't like baseball. I'm like, Jesus. And long story short, I have a little bit more time now than I did before, and I'm hanging out with these guys, maybe once a week, once every other week, and we're reconnecting it, and it feels great. And it's kind of, we have a deeper appreciation for that. And that guy who was just super pushy realized that he doesn't have any interest in what I care about, isn't interested in me succeeding what I care about. And when we spend time together, it wasn't enjoyable. It was more just filling time. To a point where my work right now is something I enjoy. Literally working on my side business is more enjoyable to me than having drinks with that guy. And filtering that out to make more room for more good people in my life, I think that's a positive thing.
Absolutely. It definitely can show you where your real friends lie, and if you're taking a week or 2 off just to focus on your project, sure, that's great. You'll find out real quick who are the friends that will invite you out and the ones who are only coming out because you keep inviting them to things. The ones that will put in the effort are the ones that will still be reaching out to you.
There's that extra thing. That's a very good point, and we see that a lot, but there's this extra thing with people who are putting in the effort, inviting you out. Are they doing it for you or doing it for themselves? Where, like, we actually have a lot, we add something to each other. I know you get something out of my friendship too. Or is it they're just really lonely, or they want attention or something, and they don't really care if it's bad for you. They want you to show up for them. And that's why they're inviting you out.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation.
Getting pretty deep in there. The edge that I want to make sure that we consider, which is I'm thinking a lot about, comes back to the marathon you're talking about. There's a professor I had back when I was studying structural engineering that everyone avoided because...
Hang on. Ashlyn's just getting home, so I'm going to mute real quick so I can let her know I'm on with you.
Sounds good.
And I'm actually going to plug in my laptop because it's getting low.
Added a marker.
All right, I'm back.
Cool. All set?
Yep, all good. There might be some background noise of her, but we're good.
All right. So the last angle I wanted to cover on this is the marathon thing. I had a bunch of professors when I was a structural engineer, and I loved the topic. I was so obsessed with it. I still love buildings to this day. It's a big part of why I like taking these photographs that I'm doing. But out of everyone, there was one professor that everyone avoided because he was his classes were painful and agony. And most people just avoided him because they didn't want to do the extra work. They didn't want to get a bad grade. But I knew that if I was in his class, I would like this profession less. And it's possible to do enough bad experiences that you actually stop liking the thing you loved.
Absolutely. You can Pavlov yourself with bad experiences to associate something as being bad. Same way if you don't like a certain topic, but you see someone who's passionate and every time you're out with them, it's a great experience, you're probably going to start enjoying that a little bit more.
And the love for the work you're doing seems to add this multiplier that is hard to account for.
I'd like to think that people tend to seek out and enjoy the positives in life more.
That's probably where that gravity comes from. Because you're enjoying it so much, it draws other people and other things to you as well.
Don't get me wrong, negative emotions definitely catch our attention more at first, but I don't think they're as sustainable as a positive one is.
Yeah, real good point. There is a lot of bonding over your hate and all this stuff, but that's temporary. And you're going to... Okay. So next, I want to do a real quick topic on storytelling.
Absolutely.
I had this interesting question that came up, and I've been dying to ask you, but I wanted to save it for today.
Hopefully I've got a good answer then.
Let me think of the best way to put it. Yeah, I'll just say the topic. Figuring out when is the right time to actually answer a yes or no question with a yes or a no, and when is it better to do a descriptive implied yes. So for example, if you I'm going to go traveling and you text me and say, hey, are you in Cuba yet? And instead of saying yes, I say, man, it's so freaking hot right now. I have to use all the sunblock on the entire island. You know the answer is yes. There's no ambiguity in that. But instead of saying yes, we're already into this place with emotion and reason and a momentum, and there's more to it.
I would say the answer to that would be, what is less expected of you? If they're asking a yes or no question, now give them a different answer, go off, be different from what they want. If they're asking something and they're expecting it to lead into a story or have more to say on it, absolutely just be like, yep, and wait for them to ask more, because that's going to keep them engaged.
Interesting answer.
They teach the same thing at the whiskey school for helping educate new people on whiskey. The last thing you want to do is talk someone's ear off about one little piece and they're stopped listening 5 minutes ago and now they're not going to ask you any more questions. If someone says, is all bourbon made in Kentucky? You just say no. And wait for them to say, oh, why do people think that? Or what is bourbon then? And then you answer that question and stop and wait for them to ask another.
That makes a lot of sense. I gotta ask, do you feel it would work the same in person? And I love these conversation hacks. I love that stuff. If you were writing a book, if you're writing a podcast, one of these stories that you record, and you're not going to have the person actually react differently, you're deciding how the person reacts. is there a time where it's better to have one character respond with a simple yes or no versus respond with a indirect yes and no?
So I'm kind of doing a form of that actually in one of the episodes I'm writing right now. I'm purposely writing it in a way to where it should be leading you to ask a question, and I'm just giving you a quick one-word answer, and then I'm going to purposely take a break and then continue and say, here's why we're doing it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you a little bit more detail, the story that I'm writing now is about the Viking who discovered Iceland.
Yes.
Except for one guy found Iceland long before him, and then another guy accidentally wound up there. So why am I talking about this guy?
Let's talk about them all.
So I'm purposely trying to make you ask the question that I want you to, and then I'm going to answer it.
So that's how you described it, waiting for someone to ask.
So
Why are we
even
talking
from
about
the
this?
very beginning, I'm going, okay, this is the story of Floki. But first we're going to talk about this man, whose name is not Floki. But he found Iceland first. So why are we talking about Floki?
And that gets a lot inside the audience's head. But is there any, is there any time when you have two characters in the story talking to each other that you'd want to alter the dialogue to have yes, no answers versus not?
I mean, I see that in like film and TV shows a lot where they do it more so for the shock value and, oh, this is the funny, quirky character. Sure.
It kind of, my gut feels that it would be rare in the script that you would have a simple yes or no, because that takes time. It doesn't give any information, and you want to have as much emotion, texture. You want to tell as much story per second as possible to have that density and pacing.
Absolutely. Hang on one second. I'm going to move to the bedroom so I'm out of her way.
I will check what's going on in Ukraine. They are sending me messages.
All right, I'm back.
1 second.
Thank you for bearing with me on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes going on in your life, and I think we'll get to a consistent rhythm eventually.
Hopefully, eventually I'll have a place with a home office so it's a little more secluded, but not yet.
Yeah, I'll ask you more about how Ashland's doing and everything later.
All right, sorry. So where were we?
Oh, we were talking about how in scripts, in movies and stories, it's generally you want to get more information out as fast as possible.
I mean, I think that goes back to the idea of changing the tone and the speed of which characters are talking, you're talking in a video in order to keep someone's attention.
Hmm.
So having that intentional slowdown of here's just a one-word answer, I'm sure that helps break up the speed, break up the tone, and keeps people engaged.
The rhythm change, which is starting to realize how important that is. Speaking of which, A plus
Now,
transition.
is this the time for my stories?
Yeah, you mentioned that you had last time you were talking that you wanted to try doing very descriptive versus not descriptive, but saying the same thing and comparing them.
So,
Tell
I
me more about
wrote
your
out
idea.
2 paragraphs. Both are describing the same person,
Hmm.
and they're both 100 words each exactly, but they're purposely trying to use 2 different vocabularies, one with a little more elegant wording, one with a little more rudimentary.
Hmm.
So I thought it'd be a fun experiment and see if one makes you pay attention more, if one seems more engaging than the other.
Okay, so the question that we're supposed to be thinking about, which is more engaging?
That would be the way I would frame this, yes. Let me get that pulled up. I'm going to figure out a way to split the frames here. There we go. Do you want to see the picture of the person I'm describing?
Yeah, I would love to sort out how we share images and stuff.
I can shoot you just a picture of it in a text.
I see a button right here called share if you want to share your screen.
I have about 100 tabs open, so I'm going to
Just send it to
refrain
me.
from that. If that's all right.
Yep.
Doing a lot of research right now, and it is a mess.
I'm really enjoying this being a marathon and not a sprint, where we get a little bit better every time, but there's no panic and strife about trying to get this last bit thing here or that time. And it keeps on getting to a really great place.
I think it's a good work in progress, and every time a
Okay.
little bit better.
I got a message from this weird guy, Ryan Heinzen.
Wonder who that is.
There is an opium addict on my computer.
So that is James Buchannon.
Really? He looks Scottish. It says spy on the bottom.
Spy. Oh, I think that was supposed to be like the illustrators or something. Page 4. I don't know what that is, but
He was a
it's
witch
supposed
too.
to be a illustration of him before he goes out
James
on the horses
Buchanan.
and.
Whiskey and horses.
Yep. So, which one would you like me to start with, or would you like me to not tell you which of the 2 I'm starting with and see if you can tell?
Surprise me, Ryan.
All right. The skinny man stood with a hand in his pocket, lazily smoking a cigar under his brown mustache, the ends of which he had twisted up. He was dressed for the occasion in a red vest under a brown hunting jacket with a top hat of the same color. His eyes were looking up and off to the distance through his gold-round glasses, holding a riding crop in his hands. His clean boots showed that he had not yet hunted, but likely soon the man would ride a well-groomed horse and set off after his prey, a fox. Versus the second option.
100 words go by fast. That was nice.
Yes, they do. It's amazing how little they truly are. He was a thin man, standing proud yet relaxed with a fine cigar hanging idly from under a brown mustache, the ends curled upwards. He was well dressed, wearing a mahogany red vest under a brown English-style hunting jacket, perfectly matching the hue of the beaver felt top hat. Upon his uplifted head, peering through his circular, gold-rimmed spectacles into the distance, grasping the leather riding crop in one hand. Untarnished boots showed that the hunt had yet to begin. Soon this well-dressed man would mount a horse fitting of his stature and search for his prey, the fox.
I feel like the second one is the more elaborate words, and I feel doing that you did something else on accident that you might not have intended. The first one felt like the words and the phrases and the sentences were more about him, his feeling and his intentions. Most of the stuff you described was the same, but there was a couple places that were different. Where the second version, it switched from being about him, his intent, what he's going to do, to kind of a passive voice thing about this is existing. Less emotion and less character. I think the last line you said, the first one was, something about, and the hunt he was about to go on. Very active, choice, feeling, stakes. And I think the second one, your last line was something like, and the hunt was about to begin. It's going to happen. Is it him? Is it someone else? Does anyone care? It's very detached.
So, in order to get the words to line up but have more words for describing color, things like that, is now mahogany red, not just red, I had to take out from the second one a lot of the pronouns as saying this is his, this is him, this is the person. I had to take a lot of that out of the second one, so now it's just hands are grasping a riding crop. It's boots. It's not his boots.
Interesting. So from this, we see a lot of the value of these small words that don't sound very important, but they're short because we use them a lot because they're very important.
That is interesting and accidentally what had to happen in order to get those numbers to line up.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was going to be the other way of, okay, these more elegant wording is going to make you want to pay attention and make you think that he's like a higher status figure versus the first one. But having him seem less emotional because it's missing that personal pronouns attached to it, that is an interesting observation I would not have expected.
I would be curious if we do this again, if you just make all of those words free, that you don't even compare those, and change the elaborateness of all words except that. See what the feeling changes.
Okay. I might have to revisit that then.
Or even go, we're just going to have 3 sentences, and it doesn't really matter how long they are, just as long as we're not adding extra commas and cheats like that. But,
More to play around with, but I think for next time I'm going to try and get that Baroque literature examples and see what type of vocabulary, what type of sentences, structures they're using.
I want to think about this a little bit more. There's more to this right now. I have to say I liked the first one, and I was surprised how much I liked it. It's kind of this moment frozen in time, and nothing's actually happening right now, but it had a lot of texture and feel. This goes back to what you were talking about last week, where we need to have a start, middle, and end in everything. And you can actually apply that to such small pieces that nothing happened. And I think this is a great example of that, where nothing happened, and you go like, well, we can't have a story. We can't have a start, middle, and end. But you absolutely had that in this. Physically,
So
nothing
should
changed.
I tell you whose writing style I was trying to emulate more with this?
Yes.
Frost. He does a very good job of just showing you a snapshot of one moment, and you feel like you're there. You can see everything very clearly, but it's just a still picture.
There's this sensation, I'm trying to find a way to describe, of a coiled spring. It's not moving, but there's a lot of feeling of motion in it.
You can tell that something is going to happen. There's going to be movement, but you're not witnessing it yet.
Yeah, there is the emotion. It's okay. I'm gonna say like there's a static thing, the picture that you're describing, this thing, but it's full of emotion and it sits here. And then there's this thing that does change over time. The emotion goes into you. Your feeling of it isn't instantaneous. That changes over time as you absorb it, process it, understand exactly how much is happening. So there is a rising change that happened over that 100 words.
So, of the two, which do you think painted the more clear picture of the person in the picture, though?
I felt the first one, hands
The
down.
first one. Okay.
Talking, it sounds like maybe because we handicapped you on the second one. So I'd like to revisit this. But yeah, the first one felt more descriptive. I felt connected. I was imagining it. I was surprised how much it felt like there was a world I'm seeing and feeling.
Interesting. I have a theory as to what that could be, because I would think I was able to use more like definitive descriptors of, instead of any range of red, it's now this red. I felt like that was going to give you a more clear picture, but I almost wonder now if having it have too much detail is almost overwhelming to where you stop trying to picture it as clearly, leaving some things open-ended. It gives you more room to play around with and easily picture in your own head.
I would love to play with that. Definitely. There's another question with that. There's a phrase I like. Through thousands of years of human history, we haven't remembered information. We've only remembered meaning. The first one had so much a connection of what he wants, why he has this, and what he's about to do, that it felt like there was meaning to it, which made everything that you were saying stick in my mind and stack onto it. Maybe you could accomplish the same thing with very descriptive words, which would be even more vivid, but you would have the meaning, so all those things would stack instead of just, we added one on, but it slipped off the plate. We added another thing on, and it slipped off that plate.
It's a fun idea, and definitely lots to explore here, and I'm excited about it.
I like this idea, Ryan. This was freaking cool.
I am glad to hear it. Mm. Now, I do have one more idea for a discussion, if we're ready to move on to that.
Yes, please.
So, I wanted to talk with you about exaggeration in storytelling, and the idea of it as a concept to me versus what it means to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the feeling that we're going to have differing opinions on this.
I might have moved closer to your mark at the last month. This is a great topic.
So, knowing that you are a person who typically values the truth above most other things, how do you view exaggeration?
Well, I would say before I started this journey, I resented it. The world is beautiful enough in the reality. And when you start dabbling in exaggeration, you dilute it all, where people will hear something amazing and go, well, I got to notch my feelings back 3 notches because this is probably exaggerated. Instead of, no, that's really how incredible the world was. That's really how incredible it was. Feel 100% of that because this is what happened.
Absolutely, and I think that is the reason why exaggeration is such a good, powerful tool. You talk to any fisherman, they're going to tell you a story, and I guarantee you it's exaggerated. But it's going to have the feeling, the excitement, the adrenaline that they felt at the time. It's giving you a more true and accurate lens into the feeling of being in the story versus the reality of it.
This is exactly where I was going to go with it, with like what happened this past month. Ooh, I'm buckling up. Keep going.
So I thought this would be a fun another tie into your journey because I know you had a similar transition with color correcting and things like that in order to give you more of the
Yeah,
emotion, the feeling of the experience, and less of the actual, here's what the camera says it actually looks like.
that's exactly where I'm coming from. Yeah, that the way you put it of that's not how big the fish was, but this is a much more accurate description of how the fisherman felt in that
You weren't
experience.
trying to reel it in for half an hour, it was 5 minutes, but in those 5 minutes, it felt like half an hour to you.
And this is one of the big things that I kind of realized with listening and the kind of stuff that I've been getting out of the whole, ketamine experiences is what actually happened has a lot of value. That's how I was trained my whole life, and I've lived my way and that's very true. Yes, and the way someone felt, maybe that doesn't affect the real outside world, but that's also a ironclad real fact. And being interested in that, having some value in that, enjoying that, or at least just seeing where it's going to take you before you figure it out, it's huge. That's a journey that I'm on right now. So the whole, yeah, okay, I know that is complete bullshit, but keep going. I want to hear exactly how excited you were about this fishing thing.
So, I want to add another caveat to that I think makes it even better for storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to point out that it's exaggeration.
During the story.
Yep. So, you're telling a story about I was having to reel on this thing for 30 minutes, and when I finally got it up, it must have been 50 pounds. And then I looked at my watch and realized it had only been 5 minutes that I was fighting this fearsome battle.
Oh,
And I took it over to the scale, and it was only 12.
I like that a lot. I'm realizing more and more with the stuff going in my life. It's not about this is the best way or that's the best way. These are both good. And if you can master both of them and bring them in together, and in almost every situation in life, people tell you you have to be one or the other. And it's kind of a way of cheating you and handicapping you so you're not good competition. Because the truth is, it's possible to master both. And if you do, you're so capable that it's scary to other people. I like that a lot.
I think one of the masters of that is Hemingway, his writing. And I know I told you this example before that a friend of mine had written, but it sounds very Hemingway to me, and I absolutely am still just blown away by this phrase of half an hour ago the clock said it was 10, now it's midnight.
That's a good phrase.
Even though it only feels like it's been half an hour, it's been 2 hours. It's showing you the feeling while still correcting it to fact.
I hated Hemingway so much when I had to read him in school. And your description makes me think that I needed more attention span to see what he was doing. And maybe it would actually be really exciting now.
Whenever you're forced to do something, it is far less enjoyable. That is the inner rebellion inside all of us. If you go into something saying, okay, now I'm interested, I want to learn, and I want to see what they're doing, you're going to notice a lot more and you're going to care a lot more.
This is why freedom is not just a great thing to put on like a bumper plate. It literally makes your community stronger. Every person accomplishes more, shares more, loves more. It's kind of
I'll
weird
drink to
because
that.
I'll go on a date
I
and girl asks
also
me like,
chose a glass especially for this. I'm not sure if you can read that, but it says experience is everything.
heck yeah, that's a good one. This feels good. So,
I think I undershot my time budget on the discussion of exaggeration a little bit, but I wasn't
Yeah.
sure how much back and forth we were going to have on it.
I was going to tell you, that's one of the reasons why I was so excited for you to have two suggestions for today, because it's such a skill to learn to estimate this that I wanted you to have that experience. Whether we overshot or undershot, this is such a good next step for you to be learning from. So that was great.
I had a feeling you would agree with me, but I was also thought you could potentially go off the rails and start talking about other experiences that you have similar feelings to now.
Oh yeah, there is a Rolodex that I've been just listing right now. But I'm enjoying this. This is the same thing that the gift that you're giving me and my friend Sean's giving me, where having these things where we're focusing on a specific topic for a specific period of time. There's been so much extra good that I've been getting out of this that I haven't gotten out of the other types of conversations I've had. So I'm definitely invested in doing that. So, all these other ideas, I'm like, no, I want to see where Ryan is going with this, because there's something great there. And we've had this happen multiple times where there's something great here that you haven't even realized yet, but you will if given the time to go through it.
I feel like most people have a surface level understanding of most concepts. And that's fine. It does well in conversation, and a lot of times that's all you need to get by. But once you start looking deeper and going further down that rabbit hole, you get to the really interesting discussions and further your understanding, and it only helps you out more in the end.
That's where this gets really exciting, where we keep pushing of how we're having a great time. You're already my friend. This is always a great time. But we're still asking, what things could we do that would make these conversations even more fun and more interesting? And it goes exponential because it's uncharted territory. So it's great, but it's great in a way we didn't even know existed before.
So I do have a question for you.
And I have a question for you.
All right. First up, before we change too much on the tracks here, is there anything, any concepts that you feel like your worldview hasn't changed on since we started this, where it's still very black and white? Nope, you should be truthful on this. You shouldn't exaggerate at all.
It's hard to put it in those terms. I feel that pretty much everything comes down to yes and. That this is still completely true as much as I always believed. There's more. This is also true as well. That, for example, in this case, it's not that my rock solid commitment to honesty is different. It's just I now see and appreciate how someone felt at the moment as part of the reality, the truth that has value that I want to know and share and appreciate.
That's a great way of putting it, seeing that other side of the coin and realizing it's still necessary to have both ideals.
When we really get down to it, this is going to be the deep path, which we're trying to cut out of our podcasts. But the double-edged coins, these dualities, all this stuff, realizing more and more, all of them, they are a single thing, just not in a way that we can process or understand or put into words. So it looks like two things, but it's actually one.
There's a gradient there in between them.
Yeah, possibly. I'm going to put it this way, and this will be the last attempt I make to go off the rails. It's like breathing is a thing. So let's say my obsession is truth. And so for a metaphor, the breathing metaphor for truth. For breathing, you have the exhale and the inhale. Maybe you have things that are considered, traditionally honest, and have things that you would consider, like exaggeration. But you can't have breathing without the in and the out. If you only had one, you don't have any of it. So you can love the exhale a whole lot. That's great. That's important. But you also need the other half. Otherwise, you don't have that motion going back and forth and you don't actually have the full thing.
I would take that metaphor a step further and say that having a break between the two, where let's say you're exhaling and you're not breathing in for a while, that's a great way of creating tension for the next time you do inhale. Or if you have something like, let's say you're filling up a scuba tank where it's just constantly putting in air, and the second that valve is open, it's just explosive outward force.
Yeah.
It can make it seem more powerful in your writing and in your stories.
That's kind of one of the fundamental things I've been getting at, where more and more I go through these experiences, I feel like it's not actually this thing or its opposite that's important. It's the pull between them that is the important thing. And that's with all your human connections. It's not like you being you or she being her or your friend being your friend. It's the tension and gravity between you that is the interesting thing. The valuable thing, I would say. So
Absolutely.
we could go off the rails a little bit more on that, but this is a topic that I think a lot about and have a whole long road of things down on it. I'll just put it this way and try to make this my last one, but I would actually say that my belief is all these things are great. That pull, that gravity between other things that pull them together, I think that's what the actual definition of soul is. You know, it's not your mind, it's not your body, it's what happens in the pull between them.
I can appreciate that, and I like the idea of soul because you're right. Once you have that in a good story, it becomes almost like a living thing.
So I want to bring this back to something grounded. Do you have anything else you want to go on this topic?
I'm good.
Okay.
I want to hear your question.
When you're doing the two different writing versions, that was really interesting in a lot of ways. There's one direction I want to try with.
Okay.
I think it's useful to focus on one thing at a time. I would like you to look at your first one. You have it written down in text, right?
Yep.
Okay. I like that a lot. I appreciate that. That was fun. Thanks for putting that together.
Of course.
Look at the first version. That was really engaging. And look at 2 points. No, we'll just make it. Look at one point where you think it would make sense to speak faster. Look at another point where you think it would make sense to speak slower. Choose those and let me know when you're ready. And I'm going to pour a drink.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Where we go.
You all set?
The
Okay.
skinny man stood with a hand in his pocket, lazily smoking a cigar under his brown mustache, the ends of which he had twisted up. He was dressed for the occasion in a red vest under a brown hunting jacket with a top hat of the same color. His eyes were looking up and off into the distance through his gold, round glasses. Holding a riding crop in his hand, clean boots showed that he had not yet hunted, but likely soon the man would ride a well-groomed horse and set off after his prey, a fox.
Okay. Look at the fast part. Look at the fast part. Look at the slow part. Multiply that by 300% and do it again.
The skinny man stood with a hand in his pocket, lazily smoking a cigar under his brown mustache, the ends of which he had twisted up. He was dressed for the occasion in a red vest under a brown hunting jacket with a top hat of the same color. His eyes were looking up and off to the distance through his gold, round glasses. Holding a riding crop in his hand, his clean boots showed that he had not yet hunted, but likely soon the man would ride a well-groomed horse and set off after his prey, a fox.
That felt damn good.
So I feel like it was definitely an easy find to get the slowdown point of I'm describing something as lazily as a verb for it, or
Mm.
I'm using that as a descriptor, so naturally slow down there.
Hmm. Where did you speed up at? It felt like immediately after that you got fast.
So describing the colors of his clothes, I felt
Mm.
like, okay, let's just paint this quick picture and then move back on to him actually going into action of setting up the spring he's going to be hunting.
So I enjoyed that a whole lot. There's a good story here that's short but really captivating. And I feel like no matter where you chose, there's better or worse places, but every place having that slowdown and that speed up, it gives you just more texture in the landscape and there's more to like see. It's when you do this beautiful panning shot, like, okay, we're looking at a boat, but we're looking at a boat with a lot of other things happening and your brain just, it latches on because there's more going on to focus. There's more that, yeah. I enjoyed that. I would like to see us do more of that.
Absolutely. I almost want us to both have a script, the same script, and we both read it out, just naturally seeing where we choose to slow down and speed up
Mm.
on the same script.
Yeah. So I feel like there's two dimensions to this. There's one, where do you do these actions? And that's going to be interesting because certain things will have a big impact because it suits being slow and this suits being fast. Another axis, though, I think the amount that you slow down and speed up is another massive tool to work with. And I'd like to, I enjoyed this so much, I'd like to explore like playing around with that a little bit more.
Absolutely. I can try and write another fun paragraph exploring this more, and maybe I'll try and do it in the style of Baroque. We'll see.
Yeah. Or we could do one of each because I like the Baroque idea a whole lot as well. But I want to do this. I'm pretty excited about this now. I want to just ask, do you think we should both do the same thing? I'm down for that. Or should we each do different things?
Uh, let's both write something, and then beforehand show each other the scripts, and we see if we can predict where the other is going to slow down or speed up.
Mm, mm. Okay. So you get a photo for me, I'll get a photo for you, and we'll write.
Sounds like a fun plan to me.
Mm. I've liked this. I appreciate you adding more of the depth of storytelling to the episode today.
It's my pleasure, and I'm happy that I can finally have some more time to be able to contribute to this.
Mm. All right. Thanks, Ryan. We'll talk again soon.
Looking forward to it.